We'll go ahead and get started. Lynn could not join us today, unfortunately, so I am just going to run the meeting in her stead. But today we have Mary Pat DiCarlo from the Department of Developmental Services, and she's here today. As I understand it, your primary role is to work on the workforce needs. And so she's going to fill us in on what DDS is doing and how they're looking to address it. And then we can have a conversation if there's any way that we can support those efforts or partner in any way, and how that may impact, this group and the things that we would like to do moving forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Pat and allow you to introduce yourself. And if you would like us to go around and introduce ourselves too, this is a smaller cohort of the larger ASDAC council. So I'm happy to do that as well. So you can know everyone's role, and um, their role on the council and then also professionally.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, well, I'll just start then and
Okay.
then that way I can turn it over to you. But so I'm Tara Vines. I work for OPM. I was hired as part of legislation to do statewide coordination for autism services. Um, and part of my position is the administrative support for the council. And then I'm just going to go around the screen in my order. So Carrie, if you want to go next.
Hi, I'm Carrie Sasu. I work at Southern Connecticut State University. I'm the co-director of our Autism Center. I'm an educational psychologist by training and also happen to be a mom of a 17-year-old with autism.
Jennifer?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Cram, the Director of Autism Services at Carillon Behavioral Health, part of the Connecticut Behavioral Health Partnership, and we provide the authorizations for Medicaid youth with autism.
Kathy?
Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Marchioni. I'm a bureau chief here at the Department of Aging and Disability Services in the Bureau of Rehab Services unit. And I represent the department on the council, and I'm primarily on this subcommittee for two directions. One is we can provide individuals who could be trained to fill this workforce need, and also we have a tremendous need in our nonprofit partners for frontline staff.
Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Merriman. I'm the Director of Student Services at CREC. So professionally, I support our programs, one of the biggest one being River Street. And I am also a mom of a 22-year-old on the spectrum.
Patrick?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patrick Hike. I'm the Director of River Street Schools and Programs, which is part of CREC. I'm actually a trained school psychologist and licensed behavior analyst. I've been working in the field of human services for over 30 years, supporting individuals with autism and other disabilities. I was appointed by the governor almost a year ago, so I've been on the council for almost a year.
And I think you know Krista, but last but not least.
Thanks, Tara. Hi, Mary Pat. Hi, I'm
Hello,
Krista
Krista.
Ostraszewski. I'm the health management administrator. I oversee the DDS waivers.
Great.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you, Mary Pat. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just a short introduction about me. I came to work for DDS in September of 2023. Prior to that, pretty much my entire career, I was in the private sector. So I worked for several different nonprofits, and I worked for, they were all DD contracted agencies. So, but I've done everything from residential to day employment, you name it, I've worked on it. So, a while back, Commissioner Sheff asked what I was up to and if I would be interested in working on the workforce crisis that we're finding ourselves in these days, and taking my years of experience with hiring, training, trying to retain staff, advocating, for all these years, and take that and try to work with other state agencies, other human service agencies within the state, other providers, and see what we can do to improve the workforce situation that we're in. So I have a very a short presentation, and I will share that now. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Yes.
So again, my name is Mary Pat DiCarlo, and I'm the Director of Workforce Strategies for DDS. I want to share some specific data with you that I have found to be pretty informative in the last few presentations that I've made. It's both national and statewide data. The sources where I'm getting the data from is, the first is called the National Core Indicator. It is a survey that's administered through the National Association of State Directors of Developmental Disabilities, NASDs. This data is collected annually from the private providers. Unfortunately, right now we're in the process of the survey being completed, but we won't see that information until probably December of this year, and that will be 2024 information. So a lot of the data that we get, it's very helpful, but there is a delay. Another source is the report, The State of the American Direct Support Workforce Crisis 2024, and that comes from ANCOR. And ANCOR is based in Washington, D.C., and they work to shape policies and share solutions to strengthen the community-based providers. Big lobbying group down in Washington. We also have information from the National Direct Care Workforce Resource Center and then the Department of Labor, both state and federal. The NCI data that we have from 2020, that came out in 2024, shows us the national and where we are in the state of Connecticut. So turnover rate for people that work as direct support professionals, work in this field, turnover rate nationally is 40%. Connecticut, it's 47%. The percentage of staff that work less than 1 year in this field is just about 40% nationally, but 66% here in Connecticut. And the number of agencies that have turned people away, that are not providing services to people nationally, is 38%, but Connecticut has been 60%, which out of all of the states that completed the survey, Connecticut was at the bottom there. So that wasn't too good. We didn't like that. We don't like that data too much. The other data that I was looking at was ANCOR, and 90% of the providers that they surveyed reported experiencing moderate to severe staffing challenges, and 69% reported that they turned away new referrals. So their national average is running kind of, par with Connecticut's. The services that are most frequently eliminated due to the staffing shortage is residential, home-based and day hab services, and employment services. So, but the most at this point is residential. And we're seeing that in Connecticut, where they're, some agencies are closing group homes, they're decreasing the size of the group homes, etc. Okay, so the contributing factors, why are we in the position that we're in? presently unemployment in Connecticut is 3.4%, and nationally it's 3.6%. You know, the way I look at most people that want to work in the state of Connecticut are working, right? They have jobs. Connecticut's living wage last reported was $24.13 per hour. That's what someone needs to make, single person, to make per hour, to make ends meet and have one job. The average wage of a DSP right now is $18.72. Okay. The DSP job is not recognized by either the federal or state departments of labor. And the reason I say that is that when I went back and tried to talk to the Department of Labor in Connecticut, they had never heard of a DSP. They assumed, as did many other folks in state, workforce development, that anybody who worked in a group home or in a day program was a CNA. And that's not the case. There are differences. And so there are a lot of different titles that are being used for people working in direct care. So we'll talk about it when I get to what we are working on, but one of them is trying to standardize some job titles. So ANCOR right now is really working hard to get the federal government to recognize DSP as a standard operating job code, right? So we're hoping that that happens, then we can also have that happen here in Connecticut. So that's being worked on. We don't have sufficient data that shows how many positions are presently open and what the forecasted need will be within the state. You know, you hear a lot of different things. I had just heard today on a webinar that nationally, when they look at data, it's for all of those who the states are aware of that have IDD. But there is a large percentage, and they were talking like about 25%, that the states are not aware of. So people who are not receiving services, and we're not aware of those people, they're not on waiting lists, they haven't applied for services, etc. So they get that information from their comparison of when people are in school to when they cross over into the adult world of services. So I thought that was very interesting today. I didn't realize that there were that many that could make a difference in the way we're looking at data. But one piece that I found to be very interesting and scary at the same time is that before 2030, the country will need 1.3 million additional direct care workers. So when I say direct care workers, I'm not talking just DSPs. We're talking home health aides, PCAs, CNAs, that group. That equates to 128,000 more direct care workers will be needed in Connecticut. And this number does not include positions that have to be backfilled because people are retiring or they go on to different careers. That's pretty staggering. And I'm not quite sure where we're going to find those people. Pretty tough. So what are we doing? When I first came on board, I, thought back a lot to the work that I was doing in the private sector and recognizing that, for several years, the legislature was giving money for rate increases, et cetera, et cetera. But that wasn't necessarily moving the dime when it came to hiring. And I'm like, okay, there's more to this. We've got to do other things better. So my focus has been on what can we do, one, to help the providers hire staff, well-trained staff, and how do we make this a a career for people, making them aware of that there's movement that they can that available for them to move up within these types of positions. There, the education, letting people really know what this job is about. I know, and I was guilty of it as a employer, but you'd interview people and you were like, okay, somebody actually showed up for a job interview. They're a warm body and I'm going to hire them and just throw them in there. And that doesn't work. So if they're not properly trained, they're not sticking around. And if they don't really understand what the job involves, they're not going to stick around. So those are a lot of the things that I looked at and I said, okay, these are the things we've got to look to change, right? We also need to make this a respected job. People that do direct care work are not respected. So just another thing that we're working on. So what I've started to do is some of my first connections when I began working for the state was to work with other state human service agencies. So I was working with David Dukas, Walt Glum, and then I started working with folks at the Office of Workforce Strategies. Our initial working committee had first meeting, we had the commissioners from all of the human service agencies on one call, which was pretty amazing. And then from that point on, then their designees were joining us, and we were part of a peer learning collaborative with 4 other states or 3 other states. There was 4 of us all together. And it was very informative as to what others are doing throughout the country, what we might be able to do, what's worked, what didn't work, who's doing what with ARPA funds versus sustainable funds, etc. So that has been very helpful. Working with the Office of Workforce Strategies has been interesting, and our focus, it's got a couple of different branches to it. One, the work came to be because of the legislation that was passed in 2023 in regards to the Human Services Career Pipeline. And so first thing we recognized, we talked about the standardized job titles and how there are so many different job titles. How do we know we're reaching every type of job title? And then when we were looking at the job titles, we're like, all right, a lot of these jobs have things in common. They're not exactly the same, but they do have things in common, including some of the training requirements that are in common. So one of the things, so we want to standardize job titles so that we all know what we're talking about, and then build on that human services career pipeline. Where this part I'm very excited about. DDS right now is developing an educational campaign, marketing campaign that will educate community members, educators, and others on the role of a DSP. What is a DSP? What makes a DSP different from a CNA, a PCA, etc. So we have a trusted messenger campaign that we are going out and talking to different groups out in the community. We're also going to be talking to adult ed, the tech schools, etc. The other part of the marketing campaign is been developed specifically to attract staff or potential staff to go work for the private providers. So the ad campaign that will be coming out sometime between the 14th and 21st of April will be, it's actually called The Future in Direct Support, Make It Your Career. That's kind of the tag. But it's going to be in billboards. It is newspapers, television, it's everything. And that campaign will offer a website that people can go to and DDS has developed a job board. On the job board is all of our qualified providers can post their job openings for entry-level direct care workers. Okay, and actually frontline supervisors. So if someone does do direct care, a percentage of their working hours, those jobs are posted. And people will go and they can look by town, by shift, etc. And they find a job they're interested in, they click on it, and it sends them directly to that qualified provider where they can fill out their application and apply. So really looking forward to this coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's been fun putting this together. And again, it's just focused for DSPs. So then we talked about the job board, moving from there. We have recognized the need to improve and expand on training. Looking at what are best practices, focusing on training staff on the soft skills or what this job is really about and letting them know that ahead of time. So we are working to put together a small group of the qualified providers, working with OWS, other state agencies, and the union to consider and start talking about what kind of changes would be good, what kind of upgrades could be done, and how would we do that? And that again all goes back to the human services career pipeline, and looking at those opportunities. And the last thing we're doing is we are working with DSS on another website and platform for all types of direct care workers, not just DSPs. So where people can go and say, okay, if I want to apply for DSP, I'm going to go this way. If I want to apply for PCA, I can go this way. If I want to apply for home health aid, I go this way. So it's a direct care, one stop, or yes, first stop. I'm not going to say one stop, but a first stop to direct care positions. So that is it in a nutshell. It's taking a while to do, but I feel like we're really making some progress and people are starting to absolutely recognizing the need. But we have to somehow or another try to get ahead of this because a lot of the providers are struggling and people have not gotten back to programs that, the pre-COVID numbers that we were seeing before. So, questions?
So I'll start real quick. So the last one you talked about, the HHS website, will that be set up kind of in the similar way where you're going to be looking at approved providers for all those programs, and allowing them to, kind of like there's like a pre-vetting, for example, who can post, okay. So it would be
Yeah.
similar to the DDS specific one.
Right. Well,
Okay.
the plan is as we work out all of the kinks with the DDS job site, that when the overall direct care worker job site, is started, that other providers, nonprofit or not private providers
Mm-hmm.
for other human service agencies can post their jobs there. So we will not be posting any state jobs
Right.
in this job board. However, they will also, when they go to this site, will find rewarding works if they're looking to, if they want to go in that direction. And I'm drawing a blank on DSS's job there's another one that DSS uses. It's kind of like Rewarding Works. So those would all be, but it's all there in one place, and you read everything, and then you pick which direction you want to go in.
Great. Jennifer.
That is such great information. I'm so excited that it's going to be in a centralized location for people looking for jobs. I know over at Carillon, we manage the Medicaid enrolled providers, as well as the behavior technicians that then provide that direct service delivery to families in the community. Is this also something that they would be able to post job opportunities on as well, or is this mostly for DDS?
Well, right now, as we're defining it, it's not just it's going to be for just DDS right now. But as this other website that we're working on with DSS is developed, it will then open up to others.
That's great.
And we will, right now, we're defining it as people who are doing direct care. So entry-level behavioral health folks and whatnot would be considered part of it. So that's still all in the talking stages and the building out, but they certainly do fall under that direct care umbrella that we're looking at.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mary Pat, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very comprehensive, and I really appreciated the data at the beginning. It really highlights the need with great urgency. I'm curious, have you identified any particular partner? I know you have a work group starting, but have you identified any particular partnerships with educational institutions that could potentially support some of this training or more specific career paths?
I have had very preliminary discussions with adult ed and the tech schools, but we're doing follow-up with them right now. I'm looking to get those scheduled. And then I did have one meeting with Free Rivers Community College in regards to start, I gave them pretty much the same presentation, and where could we partner in regards to them doing some of the training that we're looking to do. So if we were to come up with some standardized training, could that be done through the community colleges? Could it be done through adult ed? Right? People talk about how people that are going to adult ed for English as a second language, let's say, right? They're also going to be looking for jobs. So at the same time as they're doing that or doing their GED, they can get information about DSP jobs and maybe get several of those trainings under their belt so that they can walk into an employer and say, hey, listen, I've already had so many hours of training. And they're like, yeah, great. That's less money that the employer has to spend to train someone.
Okay, thank you.
But any other suggestions for partners, especially when it comes to starting to look at curriculum and stuff like that, more than welcome to take some names. And
yeah, I used to work in Massachusetts, and I know that some regional directors out of the area offices, I think it was out of Springfield and Holyoke, they actually partnered with one of the community colleges, and I think that they had a 2 or 3 course series that led to a certification. And I'd be happy to follow up with them if I could remember their names. I think the area director, it was Bill Zimmer in Holyoke, Franklin, Hampshire, and Marie Hartwell Walker. I think she was the psychologist up there as well. I can reach out to get some additional information. I would love to consider being part of the your committee.
Okay.
Or at least maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe to get an update on regular update on your committee and the progress that you're making.
Okay. Will do.
I'll offer too that, and I've said it in this committee before, but of course you weren't here, Mary Pat. So, the Southern having the Autism Center and having sort of a nice network of folks representing different disciplines who come at the neurodivergent space from different training, different backgrounds rather, and having different training really offers a nice opportunity to sort of round out an interdisciplinary team in training others to work directly with individuals. So if in which case we can offer anything, it's certainly something that we have talked about a lot and would like to do. We also have a relatively new office on campus called the Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. So they're looking for, constantly looking for opportunities to expand the non-credit training opportunities for individuals. And so kind of following a non-traditional or occupying a non-traditional space for our university, but it is quickly growing and folks are eager to contribute. So
Southern's come a long way from just special ed. That would be great. I will definitely reach out.
Any other questions? I would just say, you know, as this group continues to meet, you know, please know that we're also here as a resource, and a partner in the work, with you as well, that, you know, as I know that we would definitely be interested, you know, as the Human Services website looks to be, launched, you know, that would definitely be something that we would be interested in, you know, partnering, assisting in any way possible. And, you know, definitely, again, we have a lot of options within our council for training and, you know, that kind of stuff as well. So please
Absolutely.
feel free to reach out to me, you know, and I can put you into contact with the council or, you know, if anyone has questions for you ongoing.
Yeah.
I think
And
that-
as we, you know, as things move along, you know, I'll be happy to come back and give, you know, some updates and whatnot. But do keep an eye out for the direct support campaign. And you know, I hope that's just the first step in many things that we're, you know, we'll be able to accomplish and try to help with the workforce situation.
And is that specific to the provider network as well? Not looking at the state employees, or are you
Yes, that
targeting?
is just specifically for the providers. That's something that the commissioner was committed to trying to do something to help the providers because, you know, in the long run, if the providers can't provide the services, you know, as DDS, you know, depends on the providers for over 90% of the services. If they can't do it, then we've got some real problems. So we've got to work together in partnership to, you know, tackle the problem.
Mhm. Great. Thank you so much. This was very informative, you know, for our group and our continued conversation. So,
Okay.
any other questions or closing remarks from the group?
No, if you could just get that information out, you know, we're happy to also let providers know that is available to them. I know a lot of our Medicaid enrolled providers are also DDS providers and, you know, different waiver providers. So we're happy to get that information out as any way that we can to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, we will be actually we're meeting with all the providers on Thursday to train them on the job board, which is going to be exciting. So but I will get you that information. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for your time today.